One afternoon, all 5 of us kids and Donna and Dad piled into the station wagon, drove down Meridian Street to get lunch at Wendy's.
We get in the Dragon wagon, the green station wagon. It's raining outside and it's cold, and my dad says, hey, you guys get ready, I'll go pull the car around.
And Dad went to go warm up the car, and Dad left with none of us in the car.
We see the green station wagon drive, leave, and head on down the road. And we're standing there, and Donna, my stepmom, was like, oh, he'll be right back.
He realized it, came back to get us. We all pile in the car, can't believe, he left us. Start to drive off, and then realized we forgot Josh, too. He was in the bathroom. My story starts in 1974. I was a student at Purdue University School of Architecture. You see, from a very little boy, I have always loved the construction process, the smell of lumber, and the orderly process.
To my knowledge, the first project was a home out in Danville, Indiana for myself, my sister, my brother, and our mom, which he built himself, literally.
The house in Danville is the house I grew up in. The things I remember most about that house is this bay window that he had. He was so incredibly proud of it. And that's what he did with that house. He built a house that you can grow into, and looking back, it's the first time I realized the vision that Dad has. So after 11 years working for this company, the only real job I ever had, I was convinced by a coworker to start my own company in partnership with him. He had the cash and I had the brains, so I thought.
32nd Street is the big one. Blood, sweat, tears, huge, amazing old house. Even though it probably wasn't as big as some of his later buildings, that seemed like the craziest thing he actually ever did.
They ended up moving the whole family in. It was one of those turn of the century, beautiful, beautiful historic homes.
I mean, I remember 32nd Street. What I love is how long it stayed with us even after we moved away.
This was Dad's first major renovation. He saw a gem, and it was a gem, but it took a lot of work, a lot of work.
Him and the crew took it down to bare bones and then rebuilt it.
I've been around for all the remodels and all the builds, from being all snuggled up with my little sister in a closet on 32nd Street while they worked their little derrieres off through the night.
I remember Tombo being there to paint. Eddie probably did the electrical work, but it also served as the foundation for Dad's first company, Davis Huck.
Pennsylvania is just another rental in the north side or central downtown Indy at a time where you just wasn't the cool thing to do like it is now.
Joe built the house in Danville, created a partnership with Jack Davis. Well, he and Jack got into owning apartments as another form of income. And so they bought houses downtown, and they were in pretty bad shape, but some of them had been old mansions.
14th and Alabama, that apartment complex was amazing, and it had this big empty lot, and again, it was just another example that Dad sees things that people don't see. Let beauty be beauty, and you gotta trust the process and trust him, even though you're thinking, dude, you're wasting my time, my money, and my sanity, and it usually comes out in the end the right way.
Meridian is one building, really cool, 120-year-old building, and turned it into the home office for Davis Huck Heating and Cooling.
Don't go for the glamour. So many people are looking for turnkey properties. They look perfect and spacious, and he taught me a little bit of sacrifice pays dividends. Dad, the visionary that he is, there's an empty lot. Dad doesn't see empty lots, he sees potential. It solicited his Irish mafia, now including David Adams, and he built an office building on the empty lot next door.
It was kind of a cool little project for Joe because he had never built a ground up, a Meridian Street property. Huck Heating, he outgrew, moved the family up to Fishers, Indiana. And when you're raising a family of 7, gotta have some space.
That was where we all were full-time, all together, and I thought that it worked out pretty darn well.
It was the first house he built after 32nd Street. It was an amazing house, and it's the first house that David Adams, my husband, ever painted for him.
No, at every house we always had different roles. And so Windjammer, I definitely remember being on the cleaning crew. I can remember doing a little bit of framing, but not much. I definitely remember doing low voltage wiring and helping out with high voltage wiring.
Then once we moved in Windjammer, I think not even a year, Jack Davis fired him. And so now he's just taken on 3 extra kids, his first big time house, and his partner let him go. And that's where he built Huck Heating and Cooling and realized I'll never have another partner again. So after 5 great years of building my very first business, my partner fired me in October of 1989 in an effort to take from me what I had built. I was devastated and suicidal. A builder friend of mine, my brother Tom, and my lovely wife Donna got me back on my feet and convinced me to start over again. So I lived to tell the story and started Huck Heating in late 1999. He would go out and be a salesman all day long, and then at night he would come home and draw out the prints, and then the next day he would go be the installer and install the jobs that he sold. To me, 32nd Street was about sacrifice and hard work. Windjammer was about family and passion and doing what was right.
He needs somewhere to run the business out of, so he purchases Rockhampton Court, does what Joe does, and turns it into a multi-income property. Cool little property, way ahead of its time. Little tiny 1,200 square foot startup warehouse / offices, and gave some of our city's current leaders a starting place to grow their business.
I remember, I think I was in junior high school. My job was to go clean Huck Heating and Cooling on the weekends with my sister. But I remember my first car, my parents said, if you want a new car, go ahead and you can buy it. And if you want a free car, here's a truck. And he gave my brother and I a Huck Heating and Cooling truck with the lettering still on it.
Just like everything he does, he buys it and it somehow works out. But he takes the warehouse that was too much warehouse, cuts it up into 4 pieces and rents them out, and now he's literally making money on something that he couldn't afford to buy to begin with.
That's where Josh and Dad really became compadres.
Sydney Bay was a cool little Kevin Costner Build It and They Will Come, another crazy, I got an idea, that no one else thinks of. The diamond in the rough, the property that everybody glances by because they just can't see hope. He sees nothing but it done.
Dad had this great idea to buy a property, yet again in Geist, and make it waterfront.
So he digs out the lake and he decided, screw it, I'm gonna spec a home on it.
He had to build a bigger home. I want to say the house was like 7,000 to 9,000 square feet. It was gigantic.
Anchorage, it was an awesome house. It was the one you wanted to invite all your friends to.
Joe has a knack to take a lump of coal and turn it into gold.
I was fortunate to convince a 70-year-old gentleman to sell me his company that he founded in 1966. And on May 1st, 2007, my sons Jacob and Joshua, my Dial One co-workers Dan Lockhart, Tom Dahl, and Jeff Kirkall became one and bought Williams Comfort Air.
I'm driving to Florida on Hope, in a box truck to go remodel one of their coastal properties in Fort Myers with a buddy. And my dad calls. He just pitches me hey, we've never really worked together. Do you want to go into business together? And he said, we're going to buy a business. I'm buying a business, an HVAC business. I'm not done. Do you want in on it? And I tell everybody the next sentence. Sure, Dad, what do you need? I just need all your money.
He went and bought Williams Comfort Air. He then later sold that to Defender. He and Jake and Josh and partners bought it back, operated it, and then sold it to its current owner, Wrench Group, today. And all the while, Dad has a building. Oh, I'll sell the company to you, and I got a building. And that's kind of how the Williams building in Carmel and this Williams building today transpired.
So away his architecture obsession sketching begins, right at the onset of the steel structure, arriving. And sadly, the pandemic hit. Luckily, fearless, take no prisoners, failure's not an option Joe built this facility, remodeled this facility in record time where all of their commercial properties were sitting stale.
If you walk around this building today, you'll see he's built it so you can rent it. There's 2 main rooms that he'll rent to companies to do host training. There's an exercise facility, there's a full kitchen.
It's just got that industrial, fits the business that's in here. Super open, super inviting, super collaborative. It was perfect for the return to work. He kept a lot of minds stable at a time where an army of blue-collar men needed some direction.
We can't connect dots of our life looking forward. You can only, quote, see the past. You have to have faith that your dots will somehow connect to the future, and you have to trust and believe in something, that you are destined to succeed as long as you learn as you go and reach out to others to succeed through education and sharing.
I remember so many thousands of weekends or days after work where, my friends or people would ask me to do something and I was like, no, I have to go work on a house.
I have tons of stories and memories, but the one that stands out the most to me is building my home on Florida Road. I worked all day long, 9 to 5, and get my marching orders from Joe. He says, I don't want you to leave here tonight until you can eat off the floors, basically is what he was saying. 8 hours later, 2 in the morning, but hey, I got her done. I was so proud of myself for doing it, what seemed to be impossible.
It was brutal. It was brutal. And we did everything bottoms up on that house. I could do electrical wiring, we did all the staining, the painting, the HVAC. What was so great about Jessica's house was it was our Florida Road property. And basically it was 7 acres, and Dad went in and subdivided it into 4 lots. Jess and Ben's house, my house. I loved that house so much, loved it. He let me do something on the floor plan that he never lets anyone do, and that is build your garage at an angle. And that is the one thing Joe Huck does for everyone. He builds you a house with sweat equity like no other that you can flip for a nice profit. It's a gorgeous 2-story walkout basement that was unfinished, and Dad just keeps dreaming up more to keep putting onto the house. When my niece Piper moved in with us, he helped us out and built a 3rd bedroom upstairs so she could be up there with her sisters. And then Josh came and moved next door.
We did just build what I would call the Taj Mahal. I made an agreement with myself and my family that we're not going to move. We're going to graduate kids out of the same house, so I decided that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it right. So Built a custom home that I could show you each little piece of at least 5 of the custom homes Joe's built that I packed in this, because I was blessed with hearing the bitching, the moaning, the good, the bad of every house that you build. And I kind of packed all that into maybe 100 years from now, somebody would appreciate, everything in one. So Jake, when he had no income, no money, moves back to Indiana from Sacramento, finds a beautiful property, and they erect a custom home for Jake's family.
Jake and Heather built their house, beautiful 2-story, unfinished walkout basement. And it was probably the most contemporary house Dad has ever built. And it was a good learning lesson learned for him, because their house was on 12 acres, completely wooded, up a hill, and no trees could be harmed in the building of this house. Many years later, he ended up helping them build a beautiful pool house that I would live in if I could. He did some cool things in that house. The whole first floor has in-floor radiant heat that's heated by water. So we laid rows of pipes, and then it heats the floor. It's the longest house he's lived in since I've been his daughter, but I feel like that was his fantasy house. Dad has always been into building. In fact, he wanted to be an architect. He can walk into any space and he sees things that aren't there.
I mean, he's an eternal break fixer, so all these skills of fixing things, kind of came out with construction. I owe everything I have today towards watching good things happen, bad things happen, expensive things happen, cheap things happen, and I just lodge it up here in the memory banks to help me. For him, there's gold on every corner. God bless America. Failure's not an option, so it's just another reminder of you get to choose what you want to do every day.
Dad's a dreamer, and then he made a lot of mistakes, and he would always say, show me a man not making mistakes and I'll show you somebody who's not doing anything.
Everyone's butted heads with Joe a time or 3, but at the end of the day, Joe's the best. He knows his stuff and his heart is in the right place always. And that's why we all love him and keep coming back for more.
I would go to work with my dad all the time. Every Saturday. I mean, growing up, the smell of sawdust, it was like nostalgic for me to this day. So I got the same disease he got, apparently.
I have been blessed beyond anything. In all the chaos and kind of the crazy, he did more. Probably 80% of the work that he's done in his life wasn't for him. It's for, someone else. And that's what I admire most about my dad. Is that he's just such a giver.
Oh yeah, I know I owe a lot of what I am now to him, so I cannot explain the gratitude and appreciation, no matter how many shouting matches and fights we get in. He and I operate at a different level than anybody I know around. So I can't thank him enough.
He was always and still is always a phenomenal father, my hero. Even with as hard as he can be, I can't imagine who I would be without the lessons and the discipline and the push. And I'm proud of him. I'm really proud of him because he's shown me that anything is possible and anything can be overcome.